Where does it say webcam? Oh,
Oh,
there, webcam.
Keeping healthy during this virus crisis. I think we're entering a new world.
But where was this? This hasn't got speakers, has it? So you got these speakers.
We can hear you, Charmaine.
I've just turned it off.
Yeah, welcome to this Q&A session with the Business Association and Mid-Sussex District Council. We're very happy that Mims Davies, our MP for Mid-Sussex, has gladly joined us. Welcome Jonathan Ash-Edwards, leader of Mid-Sussex District Council, for joining us, and welcome to Kevin Stewart, who is the business unit leader for revenues and benefits, I believe. Yeah, I hope you're all staying healthy during this time. It is a very strange time. We'll start this session with Jonathan Ash-Edwards, our leader for Mid-Sussex District Council, to give us an update on the Mid-Sussex Council's position and to, yeah, basically update us. So up to you, Jonathan.
Thank you very much, Lee, and very good morning to everyone. Firstly, a huge thank you to the Business Association for coordinating this event and bringing people together. With Mims, we've done these sessions with the other business associations as well, and we found them really helpful to just get feedback from the local business community about your concerns, to try and help with the questions you have, and to build the best possible picture of the economic impact of the coronavirus, which I certainly appreciate is still very much an unfolding one, and there will be decisions being made by businesses over the coming weeks and months that will very significantly influence the economic impact, and both at local government and national level, we need to do everything that we can to support businesses and to support the economic recovery as restrictions continue to be lifted. And we've been working very closely with Mims to ensure that we get the government support packages delivered on a local level. Kevin will be able to talk a little bit more about that, but we've got over £22 million out in funding to grant funding to local businesses so far. There's more to follow, which Kevin will be able to get into in a bit more detail. But we've also, with Mims, been highlighting some of the areas of concern this we know still remain for businesses, and making sure that they're being highlighted to government, and common issues being shared, and we've seen a number of areas where the government has tried to respond to those kinds of concerns being flagged up. So there's a good forum for us to be able to do that. We've also got Sally Blomfield on the call, who is the divisional leader for planning and economy at the council. We're beginning some work to just build a stronger evidence base around the economic impact in Mid-Sussex. We know it's going to be considerable. There'll be some impacts from what's going on at Crawley and Gatwick, which our economy is slightly different to theirs, but the magnitude of the impacts on the aviation and associated sectors, we won't be immune from those. So we're trying to build the biggest possible evidence base of what's happening. We're using calls like this to build that intelligence, and we'll be having further conversations with businesses over the coming weeks, and that'll help us to shape changes that we'll need to make to our economic development strategy going forward. And make sure that we can offer as much support as we can to the local economy. I think one of the things I do need to just flag up in doing that is that this is likely to present quite a lot of challenges for local councils in the way that it's providing challenges for government and for businesses. Very significant impacts we're seeing on the council's revenues as well. We've received some funding from government to help with that. It's unlikely to cover all of that, and so there is a little bit of a challenge facing us that we will need to cut our cloth accordingly. And it's really important for me that we're prioritising the economic support work. But it would be wrong of me to not just highlight highlight that that is something that we're having to keep a very close eye on in terms of the council's resources and capacity to do some of this work as well. So I just wanted to flag that. But thank you very much for taking the time. Really keen to hear your feedback and to assist with any questions that you have.
Thank you, Jonathan. Am I still on mute? No. Now I believe Kevin Stewart is now going to take over the helm, because we've had some questions from our members, and hopefully Kevin will address some of those and give us an update on what's happening in the grants and funding sector. Over to you, Kevin.
Hey, my mute's been taken off. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Fantastic. By the way, I've pulled myself away from my 60th birthday celebrations today, so to come here and can I say thank you also, as Jonathan has said, to the Business Association for the help you've given us in publicising the various grant schemes. As the leader, Jonathan, has already said, we've already paid over £22 million. But there is still another, believe it or not, there's still another £4 million worth of business grants still to claim for local businesses. So can I just stress again, we are cold calling them, but there are £10,000 and £25,000 grants waiting there for local businesses, including within your business area as well. So could I just plug that and actually just mention that, and I probably will do some publicity, although you'll probably allow me probably not to do it today, but I will get that to you. The other thing that I'd like to just mention is the new discretionary grants. The government guidance was issued last year for non-business rates properties. These are people who are not liable for business rates, but business rates who didn't qualify for the other grants may be able to claim as well. And it's a grant from £1 to £10,000 or a £25,000 grant. We're still finalising the scheme because each authority has to set a discretionary scheme. We hope to announce that pretty quick. But like with filling a form in for the business grant, if you go to grantapproval.co.uk, you can actually register your interest for the discretionary grants. We will keep you updated on, hopefully we'll open that up soon and we'll have a funding round for that. Now that is a limited funding pot. We think just short of 1.5 million for Mid-Sussex, but we'll invite businesses to apply for that for any property related expenses, mortgages, rents, and not just business rates. And I will give you more information on that as I get it. More than happy to pick up. Hopefully that picked up a couple of questions that came through on the grants, but I'm happy to take more questions as we go along. Thank you.
So shall I ask the questions then, Kevin, or that we've got? Let me just find them.
Well, while you're looking for that, Lee, it's Richard here. Can I ask a question straight away? And then, on the back of that, Kevin, the man here. We had a meeting last night of the Grinstead Sports Council, and it was interesting. We had, as usual, a great cross section of sports clubs there, and Bob Shelley's on the call here, who was chairing it. And it's interesting that some sports clubs have qualified for these grants and some haven't. And I'm just, you're referring there on this new discretionary grant. Are you envisaging that some of the sports clubs that are obviously struggling significantly at the time would be able to apply to that fund, or when you refer to them as a business fund, I mean, clubs are businesses in their own way. I'm just trying to see if sports clubs are able to apply to that fund.
Richard, what I'd suggest you do is, if I give you my email address, Kevin.Stewart, you've got it.
I've got it. I've
Most
emailed you
sports
before.
grounds, I would suggest, would cover, if they've got, would come under the expanded retail discount because they're leisure, hospitality and retail. And I should imagine that they haven't really put their heads above the parapet in respect of it. So if they drop a line to me, it's highly likely they'll come under that. If they come under the 51,000 rateable value, I would say I'm 99% certain that they would get a grant unless there was a specific issue regarding state aid.
Yes. Okay. Thanks, Kevin, for that. That actual point came up last night, and
yes.
the rugby club, for example, who do own their own property and pay rates, did qualify for the £25,000 grant.
Yes.
Are the only club in the town that's qualified for that. For
Yes.
reasons. And at the sports club, for example, of course, the sports club is a multi-sport club. So there's hockey, there's cricket, there's junior football, there's squash, there's table tennis, and so on, badminton. But all those clubs are based on that site, but the rates for that site.
Right. Yeah. Fair point. I would get them to apply for the discretionary grants because they don't own the overall bit. They
Correct.
own something of it, and the guidance from the government covers part of that.
Does it? Fine.
Yes. So definitely do that. If they pay rates, the other grant fits nicely. If they don't, put in. Now, I can't actually prejudge the discretionary case, but they should put in for that because it's definitely within the guidance.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you couldn't prejudge, but it's if it is worth applying, then we can encourage them to apply. Which
Please do.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you.
Bob Shelley, did you have your hand up? Bob.
Right, you should be able to hear me now.
Yes.
Can I ask a quick supplementary to Richard's question? What was the name, the specific official name of the grant that some of the sports clubs have already got? They were talking about it last night, and I have to say, to flatter you and embarrass you, we're very, very complimentary about the support they're getting from the council, and you in particular, for grant support. What was the official name of the grant that some of them had got?
There's two specific grants, Bob. There's the small business grant of £10,000, and there's the retail, hospitality and leisure grant, and that's two levels, £10,000 and a £25,000. To get the first grant, they have to qualify for small business rates relief, and they could mean they don't pay any business rates. To get the second one, they have to qualify for expanded retail discount, which is basically anything in the retail, hospitality and leisure sector that actually pays business rates.
What did you say the max value of the small business one was?
£10,000, but that's a £15,000 RV limit.
Thanks, Kevin.
No problem. Thank you.
And thanks again for the support you're giving the club community.
We, like the leader has said, we realise it's a very challenging time for local businesses. So I'd rather people came to us and asked for our help, and we said one way or the other how we could help, and they didn't come to us.
Okay.
Tennis Club would like to say thank you very much for your grant. It was very, very, very helpful, and we found it very easy to apply for it. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you ever so much.
What's wrong this morning, Fiona, that we can't see you?
A
makeup issue.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bob.
Richard Tremontin, did you want to say something?
Yeah, can I just also say thank you? I got the leisure grant after applying. I actually emailed Kevin as well on that. I'll just be clear, the small business grant, is that the one if you pay rates, that's where you get a holiday, or is that something different to that?
No, small business rates relief, is there any property in England that you own, so if you own more than one over a certain RV, you don't pay any business rates up to 12,000, the sliding scale up to 12 to 15,000 rateable value. So the payment holiday for 2021 is the expanded retail discount. That's a specific one the government have set up for COVID-19. The small business rates relief is 1 year in, year out.
Right. Okay. Because we're actually a community amateur sports club, so we actually get mandatory relief. So I just wanted to check if it was something.
But this year, you'd probably get the expanded retail discount because they've actually granted that as well.
Yeah. That's instead of discretionary. Okay. Yes. Okay. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, I will start asking some of the questions we've got from our members. The first one is from Simon Wigsell of a company called Let's Get It Sorted. It's quite a longish question. I've been running my business since 2013, but only took it full-time in February 2019. Before then, I was working full-time and doing my business at weekends. I have done a self-assessment each year to ensure I pay the tax on my income. With the self-employed support, I need to have filed a tax return from 2018-19 that shows my self-employment income being at least 50% of my earnings. Can HMRC not look at my self-assessment for the past 3 years and provide support based on this? he feels that he's been completely missed, even though working incredibly hard, and would suggest that his tax may rise, after the outcome of this. So I think what he's asking is, for very small businesses, for one-man, two-man bands, he feels like he's been missed out.
So I'll answer the second point. If Sarah answers from my team the first one, we can try and help with that. Sarah?
Okay, so the self-employed support scheme does have very strict eligibility criteria in terms of you have to have as a minimum submitted your tax return for the 18-19 period, and if you have income from pay-as-you-earn and self-employment, the self-employed eligibility needs to be over 50%. Unfortunately, this gentleman doesn't cover it. I've had a look through. You might be eligible to receive some support through Universal Credit, but I can confirm that we've received, as an MP's office, a number of similar inquiries where people either have moved to self-employment more recently but have quite a substantial pay-as-you-earn history, or have to run a mixture of pay-as-you-earn and self-employed. So we have raised this with the Treasury. We haven't had a reply yet. So if we've got any contact details for that gentleman, or he wants to email in with those, once we get that reply, I can update him.
I spoke to the small business minister yesterday. I think people in those particular situations, some of those as well who are also employing people, this is a real problem. We spoke to the LEP at the end of last week as well, and they're looking to pivot some of their committed fund and support to those people. I'm really concerned about the amount of businesses that come in to this sector. We've got a lot of people who've seen a positive economy in the last year or two and have decided to, take the plunge and go on their own. And then the handbrake of COVID on the economy has meant that they've come unstuck. The reality of the self-employed income support scheme is it does cover 95% of people, but the people that it seems to not cover seem to be a lot of people in Mid-Sussex, and it's a real concern. So as I say, I spoke to the small business minister yesterday. He's really worried about this because once these smaller businesses or self-employed people don't come back in, and as Jonathan mentioned, that wider Gatwick point and the issue around here, we are going to have a confidence and startup challenge. So although in the broader Treasury function, they haven't been able to come up with something that covers this. Partly it is about standing up a system very quickly, which you can pay out quickly from, which is what they've managed to do. But also, it is more of a difficult area in terms of the level of detail, the potential fraud, all sorts of stuff there. I mean, different if you've been doing a tax return. So I think the best way that we're going to be looking at this is through support from BEIS, through the work that we're doing at DWP in terms of not bringing back the minimum income floor where people have to be gainfully self-employed too quickly and things like that. So we're looking at that. I can tell you Sarah has been rattling cages in Treasury, and so have other MPs. It is definitely an area that for me and my party I'm really concerned about. Just want to quickly touch on the tax issue because it's something my brother and other people have said to me in terms of small businesses and people in that particular area. People are very worried about, in any recovery, more tax and less chance to invest and be confident on the next side. That's as we go into the next stages. I spoke again to the small business minister yesterday. Obviously I'm the Minister for Employment. I'll tell you some of the work that I'm doing later in the call if that's appropriate. But the point is, I think we're really hoping not, and I don't frankly think we should be going down a higher tax route. Far from it, the opposite, that we should be encouraging investment and people coming forward. People are worried about that coming down the line, and that could also impact our recovery. So it's very clear as a government we need to get the message right that we want people to come back, and that we'll be looking very carefully at taxes but not clobbering people, because that will stop people even wanting to restart. Thank you.
Thank you, Mims. One of our other members, Margaret de Jong from Pertinax, has asked Will the Mid-Sussex District Council be giving out any further grants for those businesses who will be closed due to COVID-19 for more than 3 months?
I can take that particular question. Can I just state, I'm not aware of any grants other than the business rates grants and the discretionary top-up grants. There may be further funding coming from the government, but at the moment they're the grants. If they've got any form of property expenses, that's what the discretionary top-up grant is. So, but any questions, if they direct them to me on grants, I will get back to them and respond to them. I'm happy for you to give my email address.
Thank you, Kevin. And from another member, does the Mid-Sussex District Council have a pressure line to government regarding those directors of companies that have closed due to COVID-19, who are on a yearly PAYE RTI submission system, as the date stated by the HMRC was mid-March, and the end of yearly RTI submissions landed 1 week later. Thus, many directors were not eligible for the furlough status and find themselves without financial support during this time. I've spoken to a few accountants who have put this to their general accountants group, but so far nothing from central government.
I think Sarah can pick this up, and I'll pick up on the bit about timing of businesses coming back as well. Sarah?
Okay, yeah, we've been approached by a couple of people who've been affected by this, and again, we've raised it with the Treasury, emphasising that those self-employed directors who do their submission once a year have fallen foul of this because of the way that the timing has happened, because of the end of the financial year, end of March. So again, it's something we've raised as well. We're waiting for a reply on that.
Thank you. A question from Roger Martell of Martell's, and welcome, Roger. From the 1st of June, we are told that some non-essential shops will be allowed to open. Will that be any shop, or may there be some more restrictions?
Yeah, hi. I've emailed you, Roger, with that. So the plan, the roadmap plan from the Prime Minister. So there's a lot of criticism about the announcement of what the Prime Minister said on the Sunday evening, and then the updating of the next stages was in the roadmap to recovery, which was released the following day to coincide the statement to the House of Commons. The challenge that you have is that you have to, as a government, tell the House of Commons first, but we were sort of 3 weeks down into the second stage of lockdown, and people were wanting a way forward. So we're having to move from a very clear stay at home message and work at home if you can message into a nuanced message of what the recovery and the way forward looks like. So in terms of non-essential retail businesses, they may be opened in phases from the 1st of June, and others, such as salons, pubs and restaurants, no later than the 1st of July. You might have seen some restaurants such as Pizza Express and Wagamama's and other things starting to offer now takeaway services. So that is all in the roadmap from the Prime Minister, which I've shared to people. It's on the .gov.uk website, and that spells out what you can and can't do, and that is a roadmap based on where we are in terms of infections. So there may be some localized changes according to outbreaks which may affect that opening, but I would think anybody in that scenario, and I've certainly had lots of high street people asking me about the 1st of June, particularly frustrated because they feel that some of the things that they're selling or able to sell you can pick up in one of the large food retailers. So they really do feel that with social distancing they can get on and reopen. So the 1st of June is the plan. the message from the Prime Minister is certainly that we should be back up and running as a country as much as possible with appropriate safety and social distancing as we get into July, because frankly we can't carry on like this. We're all asking for grants and support and all of those things, but we all know that cup will run dry unless we're all making some money. So we've got that balance between public health and the responsibility that people have as business owners. That sits between us at DWP in terms of working with HSE, and there's fantastic advice on the health and safety executive for people running businesses and setting up differently as people go back into recovery, as I say, high street shops from the 1st of June, and also advice through local authorities as well, who cover safety and trading standards and things like that. So there should be good advice out there. If you're stuck, ask for help. But the good thing now is most people shopping or engaging with businesses know how to do it differently and are keen to support locally. So we will continue to evolve that advice. HSE will be pragmatic in its response. If you're doing the right things and advising people the right way, they have got the legislation and powers needed, but it will be enforced pragmatically, and people will be supported into the next stage so that people are confident about going back to work and going back to trading. So I hope that helps.
Thank you.
I just say, yes, thank you, Mims. I did get your email and I read through the pages. And we are, fingers crossed, planning to open from the 1st of June, albeit in a restricted fashion. But we will do what we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. Is there any thought as to full-time employees being able to return to work part-time with the balance of their time on furlough pay?
Yes, so that's being sorted out at the moment. DWP are in discussions with the Treasury on this, and the new changes of the furlough, which will continue through to October, will have ability to part-time furlough people and roll people in and out of furlough accordingly. I'll just bring Sarah in a minute in terms of training and support that you can do and engagement that you can do with people in terms of furlough and keeping people in touch with the workplace. I think it's really important that the next stage of any furlough has that ability, because some sectors can recover quickly. We know particularly aviation, tourism, other areas are going to have a longer tail, and we're going to need a more agile furlough system. So we're very aware what was stood up quickly is not going to work long term. FSB, CBI, everybody you would expect is being engaged in these conversations so that the most agile furlough can come forward. But what we really want to do is get out of the situation where we need to furlough people and have people confidently coming back into the recovery, and that's where the vaccine and the antibody tests and other things come in. I'll just let Sarah come in terms of what you can do within the existing furlough as well to try and help you plan your workforce.
Yeah, so the current scheme at the minute, you can furlough people in 3 weekly lumps. You don't have to have people all off at the same time. You can kind of alternate them, but they are minimum of 3 weeks. During that time, during furlough, people are allowed to be trained, but they're not allowed to undertake any activity for you that would generate income or business for your company or your business. They are able to, with your permission and in line with any employment contracts you have, volunteer or go and work somewhere else if there are jobs available. So we're aware that, for example, some charity organisations have kind of almost done a staff swap. So they furloughed their staff, and then those people are volunteering for another charity for the benefit of that charity, as long as those charities aren't related. So we're just waiting to have those details of how the new scheme that kicks in, how that will vary from that.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Mims. Next question. Is there any further guidance for the lockdown period of 12 weeks for the over 70s?
Yes, the shielding information and changes to that is all on the .gov UK website, and if you aren't signed up to that for alerts, I would very much say that you should be. As a business, it will flag any changes, and some of them can be very small. The shielding cohort, where we at DWP have been supporting MHCLG in terms of the shielded group, have been doing check calls and engaging with people. I know local councillors have been checking in with their cohorts of people that they know are particularly vulnerable. This will change depending on what the public health advice is as well, and there has been some slight amendments to that, because we are aware that some people over 70 can be very fit and well, but the reality with this COVID is that actually age can have a factor, but we are learning more and more about the different factors. There's a lot of people in the shielded cohort due to health conditions who aren't over 70, and in fact it's been quite surprising the amount of people who are much younger and their health conditions are the relevance rather than the age. So we do need to remember that COVID in many places and many times is a mild condition, but where you have underlying issues or other issues, and it can be things like the strain of it or blood type, with, as we say, we're learning more and more about it, it can really vary in terms of effect. So that is being updated through .gov.uk. You might have seen the symptoms have changed, so the confirmation of loss of appetite, taste and smell has been added as a formal, so that is evolving, and certainly there is a balance here in terms of public health and isolation issues, in terms of particularly older, more vulnerable people not being in the community and supported. So that's all being looked at in the round. But at the moment, if you've got that letter from the doctor and you know you've got an underlying condition, until we get to the point that we've got some kind of vaccine or antibody test, at the moment nothing has changed too much. We've got the antibody test very shortly, hopefully rolling out through Roche, but I think the reality is we're going to have to understand that this is with us as a potential challenge public health wise for a long while. We'll have to continue to live and work differently as the government tries to continually update the advice. But the reality is, hopefully, if we continue to adhere to that, the infection rate is pretty low here. It has generally been pretty low, and our capacity in the NHS is boosted. So if there is an outbreak, we can react fairly quickly in a localised way.
Thank you, Mims. The last question on our sheet, which was possibly half answered, well, has been answered, is will self-employment support be extended?
Okay, another one for me. That's currently under discussion with Treasury. I genuinely don't think we're probably in a scenario where it will continue in the way that the furlough scheme is. I think it's probably for what I've described earlier, about the fact that we are keen to come back by July into a recovery and allow people to work and engage differently. We know that the stay-at-home message was taken up massively by people in particular sectors who didn't necessarily have to stop work. You know, it was a positive in terms of keeping people safe, but the reality is if you can work outside, if you're a landscape gardener, if you're a tradesperson, with appropriate social distancing, people can go back to work. So the government is very keen to help this, and ultimately, because we need to have the confidence to rebuild and restart the economy, and we just simply can't keep supporting people to stay at home. So there may be sectoral support aviation, tourism, those kind of areas where we may need to put in longer support. But we still do have vacancies. So we've got vacancies in construction, in haulage, in the care sector, in logistics, in food production, in agriculture. It may be, well, we all know that we're going to probably be a lot poorer, less well off, less opportunities than we would have had coming into this, and people may need to pivot into doing other roles in order to sustain themselves as they perhaps rebuild self-employed businesses. So I think we've got to have probably a very honest conversation about, as we come out of this, that we are not necessarily going to be able to be as well off as we expected, and people may need to take on other roles in a national effort, in a local effort, to make sure that they've got the money coming in. So it's something we're looking at in terms of a labour market strategy at GWP, engaging with the Treasury and working with BAYS. But the reality is we are going to be into a change scenario, and some sectors might not be there and other sectors are thriving and will need more people.
Thank you very much. Well, that's it from the sent through questions. Does anybody else have a question? Perhaps put your hand up for the team at Mid-Sussex. Ah, Elaine. I think you're still muted. Hang on. Try now, Elaine.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good. Parking. When the shops reopen in June, July, will parking be made free, basically, so that people are encouraged to revisit the town centre? Did you get that?
Parking. Has anybody got a comment on the parking from Mid-Sussex?
Yeah, absolutely. Can I bring Stephen Hillier on that, who leads on parking for us, and we'll be able to answer that one.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Jonathan. Good morning, everybody. It's something that we're looking at very carefully. It's that very difficult balance between supporting the local economy, encouraging people to visit the town centres, and also, parking generates a lot of income, which covers the costs of running parking. And it's a very difficult line to tread, and we are looking at it at the moment. I suspect the position will be that when the kind of brakes come off retail opening, as described by Mims, is probably when we will start reinstating parking charges. The car parks are now already being used quite a lot, which is great. It's a very difficult line. We're kind of damned if we do and damned if we don't on that one. So, but I think in terms of setting expectations, I think when the full retail sector is open, then probably we will be kind of duty bound to reinstate the car parking charges.
Thank you, Stephen. Anybody else? Kate and Norman. So start with Kate. Need to unmute you, Kate.
Okay, I am. Can you hear me?
Okay, there you are.
I'm just wondering, going back to the hospitality industries like hotels particularly, what's the view on that at the moment for them opening? I mean, obviously you mentioned about restaurants and social distancing, but a couple of our members are quite large hotels, so just wondered what the thinking is on that currently.
Yeah, I believe they're in the next phase into June into July. There is an opportunity to socially distance in a hotel appropriately. Depends what you're doing and how you're going to meet and what you're up to be honest. But I do know that this is a particular issue in terms of construction, for example. So where we do need our local hotels to be available for large site constructions, for example, you know, that is already being fed back as an issue where people need to move according to where the work is. There's also work, and Mid-Sussex will know about this and are engaged in this, in terms of the way that we've managed to house and support homeless people is through working with hotels, and they've been brilliant. What's been amazing is a lot of people who we've never had a chance to be able to reach to give support. We've got a great springboard to get them onto the next stage of support and recovery, and that is going on as well. So there's a combination of things there. So the tourism minister is working very strongly with hotels on this, and the hospitality lobby group, and I spoke to Hospitality UK about it recently. This is again one of those sectors where we're going to see possibly a long tail in terms of recovery. There was also an issue around perhaps workers and seasonal working as well, so not necessarily so much in this area, but certainly in other parts of the country where we need to make sure that where they normally have people coming to work and do summer seasons, that's appropriate. So that's very much in the government's thinking, and there's a number of factors which are meaning that the guidelines haven't been fully given clarity, but it's absolutely in there. There are 5 or 6 different ministerial task forces which all cover things like retail, non-essential retail, hospitality, all of these sectors, and they're all drilling down with all the stakeholders to try and make sure what advice comes out is workable and understanding of the industries.
Thank you, Mims. Anybody, Norman, I believe you had your hand up.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a comment on the very difficult line that Stephen has to tread with parking, because I was a previous cabinet member for parking, and I know how difficult it is. And also, as a general busybody, I happen to know that a number of other authorities have already reintroduced car parking charges. So it'll be interesting to see what their experience is, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Norman. I believe, Rex, you've had your hand up.
Yeah. Do you want to unmute me? Yeah, thank you. Thanks for arranging today's session. It's great. I didn't realise that we've got so many high-level people here, so it's brilliant. I just wanted to lay some ground to everybody here. Through the EGBA, we've got an idea. We've got, in the centre of East Grinstead, you know that there's an empty 18,000 square feet unit, which is designated A1 to A4 in planning use terms. I had a meeting with the owners yesterday of Evolve Estates, Zoom meeting, to just to touch base with them. One of the ideas, and they haven't got anybody ready to come into the unit yet for obvious reasons in the market. Their agent is Savills, who were also on the call yesterday. One of the ideas is to put together, to use that space, either in part or in totality, as a sort of community project with some pop-up things in there, potentially some school usage, and to use it as a community facility under licence from Evolve Estates. So it's very early days at the moment, but I'm just sort of flagging the idea, because if it does come off, then potentially there's some planning issues of use changes if we change it temporarily to a D use, community use. And Kevin, can I just ask what the position on business rates is with an empty shell, first of all? Are business rates applicable or not?
It would depend on the nature of what you're doing. There is empty for a shell, but I'd need to know a little bit more detail. But if you email me separately, I will get back to you quickly. Thanks.
Yeah, that would be great. I'll do that. As I say, it's early days, but I think what's in my and our mind potentially is to create in the autumn is some sort of early sort of winter wonderland, sort of a few pop-up events there, some food, some school activities, you know, potentially some sort of theatre and some community activities, really, just a mixture. It's a great location right in the centre of the town. And I feel sure that if Evolve aren't going to be letting it anytime soon, they'd be agreeable, because I think there'd be some good PR for them and the town council and the district council. I think it's a win-win situation. So I'll write to you through the EGBA, because the EGBA are involved in this as well, Kevin.
Yeah.
And I think it could be a great community project.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rex. It was a great idea. Anybody else? Can't see any hands up. Okay, well, I'd like to thank Mims for turning up today for this meeting. We are recording it. We will, there's some invaluable information for our businesses in the town. And if you don't mind, we'll put this on our YouTube channel, because all the questions are appropriate for lots of sectors. I'd like to thank Jonathan Ash-Edwards and your team. You've been absolutely fantastic during this period. I think through the Business Association, we're going to start up an award system for District Council of the Year, so that you get our votes. So thank you very much for your time. Really appreciated. Keep the fight going, Mims. I know you must be worn out. And thank you to you all, and catch up with you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks everyone. Thanks all.
Thanks very much. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.